Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of On Point Voices. We have a special guest today, one of the most important voices in the country today, a martial artist, a world traveler, internationally known martial arts expert, someone that I've had the pleasure of competing against twice in the last year. He's defeated me in contest both times, so he's on my hit list. And if I can defeat him, then I know I've arrived as a martial artist. I'm talking about none other than Jonas Nunez. Sir, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Master Kevin? How's everything? Long time no see. Long time no see.
Yeah, right. I'm doing great. We got a lot of information to cover. I know you have a hell of a story, and we're going to uncover it. So let's just jump right in. Now, I want to start here. You competed this past weekend, March 28th, 2026, in the UMAN OG Fountain of Youth Tournament. Could you recap for us your results, how you did there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being that I understood it was a small turnout this time, and there were a lot of tournaments because it's tournament season and stuff like that. But the quality of the competitors was excellent. And so I took first in Japanese weapons, traditional weapons, first in the open forms. You took first in the American division, and I took second in the traditional forms to Master Derek Williams.
Okay, great. Congratulations on that. And in weapons, for those of you who don't know, he competed in bow staff. Okay, let's take it back to your origin story. How old were you when you first started training in martial arts, and how old were you when you made black belt?
Okay, I started in 1967. Okay,
Wow.
my dad moved here from I'm half Chilean, half Puerto Rican. My dad's from South America, from the country of Chile, and he was a minister, he was an evangelist, and he came here to to preach on churches and stuff like that. He was on a campaign tour. He met my mother, who's Puerto Rican, in the Bronx, and they fell in love. That was like his first girlfriend. He was 30, and from there on, they decided to stay in the Bronx. So he
Tú
decided.
hablas español, no, no hay problema.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I
Okay.
actually speak four languages. Yeah, so it's pretty good. And so, he decided to stay in the Bronx. So he says, "Hey, man, ministers don't really make no money and stuff like that." So he's got it, and he worked in a factory all his life, and he got a cheap apartment, and we were like on 138th Street in St. Anne's in the projects,
In the
And
South
so, growing
Bronx.
up in the projects, in the South Bronx, definitely. My mother never understood when she sent me to the bodega with $5 to get a gallon of milk, bread, and eggs, that I had to fight three or four guys every time I went to the corner store. Because, everybody back in my time, there were the baby nomads, the chingalings, the savage skulls, all them
Mhm.
gangs, even before Latin Kings and all that stuff. And so I had to actually fight every day. I didn't know how to fight. I just fight crazy, throwing myself all over the place. And so I decided, well, my mom doesn't understand this. She's like, you're always fighting. You have to calm down. You have to go more to church and stuff. So I was like, well, I told my mom that I need help, extra tutoring after school. So I joined a boxing gym, which I saw coming and it was the PAL, 183rd Street.
How old
Learned a
were you?
boxing
How
gym.
old were you then?
I was like
You
eight.
were 8? Okay. So you were
Yeah,
born
because
in
I
what,
got tired of
58,
getting beat
58,
up
or
by 12
59?
or 13-year-olds. Yeah,
You were
yeah.
born when, 58, 59?
58.
58, okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like 8 or 9. And then so I started boxing with a coach named Maynard. He was a very famous guy in the South Bronx. So we would box from 4 to 6. And in the same area, the gym, they had martial arts. They had Shotokan karate, and we would do karate from 7 to 8:30. And then that's what I did. And then that was just Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would go up to Jerome Avenue, the church, St. Jerome, right there by under the Ford train, and train Taekwondo with Master Frank Santiago and David Gonzalez. So they did Jito Kwan Taekwondo. They were under Henry Cho's system of back then when Taekwondo was Jito Kwan, Mudo Kwan, Chung Do Kwan,
Thunder
like
Kwan.
that. Right. So my first system, I did a little bit of Shotokan, and then I translated over to Kempo because my dad moved up to Kingsbridge Terrace from 138th Street. We moved up to Kingsbridge Terrace a few years later, and, to make story short. And at the Kingsbridge Community Center, there was a guy named Sifu Bob Mahoney, who was a student of Ralph Castro, who was Chinese Hawaiian Kempo, and that's the system that he taught. So I made it to black belt, and that's it. He was there for 5 years, and I would train there. My days off, I met a security guard in the school, in my
Wait,
junior
hold on
high
one
school.
second. So when you made black belt, you were how old then? You were 13?
Oh, 14, 15 in that
Okay,
area.
14,
Then I
15.
met Sensei Elliot Soto, who was a security guard in my junior high school. It was called 143 Tatart. It's right there in the Bronx by Kingsbridge. And he did USA Goju, and he was studying directly under Peter Urban in the Chinatown dojo. And so we would go down there. So when I was like a teenager, like 14, 13, 15, I would see the ranks of Ron Van Cleef, Oberson Watson, Wilfredo Rodan, Frank Ruiz, um, Earl Monroe, Rupert O'Brien. So those, I'm 13, 14. Those are like my heroes. Those are the guys, because they were the guys fighting out there. Fred Miller, Errol Bennett. Those are the guys that we looked up to. Those are our Bronx legends and stuff. And so I got my black belt in Kempo. My instructor decided to get married, move out of the Bronx. He was an Irish guy, and he married a Chinese girl. And he was into the Chinese culture, so they moved somewhere to Hong Kong, somewhere. Elliot Soto, my instructor in Goju, he got divorced, and he decided to stop martial arts. So then I was competing. I started competing like in 68, 69 in the local tournaments in the Bronx. The Bronx had many tournaments at that time. And I met Tommy Chen and Freddie Lopez and Barris Sweeney. I met them at the Yin Yi Cup, Archie Roulan and Anthony
Mhm.
Lau in Bishop Ford High School. That used to be like the Battle of Atlanta of New York. And so we met there
Yeah.
competing. As a black belt, I was just building my way up. Fought many years as a brown belt. For 5 years as a brown belt, 5 years as a green belt. I remember guys like Steve Malowensky, who's now a 10th Dan in Goju, Marvin Farmer, Marvin Farmer, me and Marvin, and Donald Bazemore, and the whole crew, Larry Thunderfoot Curitan. We were all in the same division. And we
Mm.
fought. That's what, and we're still friends up till today. So then I started. I met with Master Tommy Chen, and I really like the guy. I see the guy doing Japanese forms. He would take off his top. He put on a Chinese top. He do kung fu forms. He would compete against Master George Creighton, and then they do the same
Okay.
thing in weapons, and then Japanese weapons, and then Chinese weapons, and Benson Lee and all them guys. And I'm like, this guy's fantastic, man. It's like a little Bruce Lee. And so, I decided to hook up with him, and I said, like, listen, can I come visit your dojo? And we trained together. So I was already a black belt, but I came in and they let me keep my black belt. And they had a little tiny barbershop size dojo in Brooklyn and Kings Highway. So I would take the D train from Fordham Road, Kingsridge, all the way to Kings Highway, and then take a bus to his dojo. And I did that for years. I went through high school and eventually I became an assistant instructor with them. And then, to make a long story short, he gave me my blessings. He says, "Why don't you open a dojo in the Bronx?" And so, that's what I did. So in 1980, I opened up my first school on Montchelou Parkway.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
So
that
the
trip
style that we
from
do is Okinawan Japanese Shindo-ryu Karate Do. The original founders, Yasuhiro Kenishi in Japan. There's a rich story behind that. Anybody can see it on YouTube. And then Master Lopez and Master Chen were like they're New York representatives. We also have representatives in California, which is Master Yamazaki, and actually Shokasugi, the guy who did all the ninja movies. He's
Mhm.
actually one of our grandmasters over them, and they're the West Coast demo. So when I go out to
Could
Cali,
you repeat the name of the style again?
Okinawan or Japanese Shindo-ryu Karate Do. Originally, it was called Nihon Konden Shindo-ryu Karate Do. But to make it short, Shindo-ryu Karate. It
Okay.
means heaven's way or the way to heaven.
And what are some of the elements that make up that system? Because
It's
I
a
know that when you do
combination.
forms, it's like some part of it is praying mantis, some part
Crane,
is
yeah,
karate, some part
the crane. Yeah, we
Shotokan.
use the crane a lot. So in the Okinawan systems, they came from the Chinese systems.
Mhm.
But Yasuhiro Kenishi, in 1906, there was an earthquake in Japan, the big earthquake in Tokyo, and half the city was destroyed. Genshin Funakoshi, who was the founder of Shotokan Karate,
Mhm.
Morei Uyeshiba, the founder of Aikido,
Mhm.
and Shogun Miyagi came to Yasuhiro Kenishi's dojo, and that became the first mixed martial art dojo because that was unheard of. other styles didn't train with each other, and other masters didn't do that. But he was like a in his own way a religious guy, and he opened the door for them, and that became like the hub. And then they started the Renbukai, which was the first Japanese Okinawan martial arts federation in Japan. So there's all the pictures and history. You can look it up on YouTube. So our style was a blend. Since Mambuni was also training there, they took a little bit of Shito-ryu, Shorin-ryu, Shotokan. He invented the Taisabaki kata, which actually Morei Uyeshiba incorporated into Aikido. So all that was formulated when you had like 4 or 5 grandmasters. I mean, there were the masters back then working together in one dojo and just sharing knowledge. So I could say our system is like a blend. It's like a blend of Shito-ryu with Shotokan, something like that. You know,
It's
most
interesting that
Japanese styles are really similar.
Aikido and Shotokan were kind of established right around the same time period. And a
Yes,
lot of people don't realize that Funakoshi is actually one of the signatories on Uyeshiba's certificate,
yes,
for his grandmaster.
yes, yes.
So,
Because before
it's
it was
fat,
Aikido, it was Aiki Jiu-Jitsu,
right?
you
Yeah,
know.
Daitoryu. Um,
Mhm.
and that's interesting because so we're talking basically around the 40s when a lot of these things were established. Shitoryu, for example, wasn't actually established formally until 1952.
Mhm.
And in New York, which is so different from Jersey, like Jersey's very eclectic and they
Yes.
combine styles, especially back then, 70s and 80s. Whereas New York was very traditional, no tradition, everything's got to be tradition, tradition. But the tradition they're talking about goes back to the 40s and 50s. It's not like thousands and thousands of years
Right.
old.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, I mean, even your style basically was kind of, breaking the mold, by combining with different things. And
Yeah.
and I remember in the 70s, like I've always been a Ronin and I've trained in a bunch of different systems, but in the 70s in New York, that was like extremely frowned on. That was like a big no-no. You don't do that.
Trader.
Right. You can't do, taekwondo and kung fu.
Right. Right. Right.
So so that's fascinating. So Tommy Chen is what, Filipino?
No, he's Chinese, actually Jamaican Chinese. There's a
Right,
huge Jamaican population in China. His
right.
father, which was one of his original teachers, Dennis Chan, and his uncle were high ranks in Shindoru. But they were what they call merchant marine guys that they traveled a lot on ships. So actually, Tommy was born while he was stationed out in Jamaica. He was born in Jamaica, so people don't know that he's Jamaican Chinese.
Yeah, Garth Binns actually told me that last year. That was the first time I even found that out. So that's interesting. What was your family dynamics like growing up? Did you have brothers and sisters, and any of them get into sports or martial arts?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of five boys. Some of them was trained with me, and then one of my brothers a power lifter, and most of them did martial arts, but they veered off. They all married and stuff like that. Got married. But I'm the one who kind of had the passion for this. I got the passion for this because I was a skinny, asthmatic kid. I was prematurely born. The doctors told my mom I wasn't going to make it, and if anything, I would be handicapped or would have heart problems and stuff like that. And so for to me, this was like a lifesaver. Not only that God saved me, but through martial arts, it was a lifesaver. And so I not it's not just a sport to me; it's a way of life.
I understand. And when you're teaching now, since you have so many styles in your background, like what are you teaching? Like what do you call it?
Our principal style is karate. Like if I teach 6 days a week. I teach 5 classes a day. Okay, that's what keeps me in shape. So
Wow.
I teach Wednesdays and Friday traditional karate. One day we'll do all basics, kicks, punches, and all that. One day is devoted to kata. One day is devoted to self-defense. On the other days, kickboxing. I very ventured into kickboxing in early '76 as an amateur and then turned pro in the '80s. And so on Tuesdays we do bag work, Thursdays we do focus pad work, and Saturdays we'll have a 2-hour sparring class. So I try to mix it with both.
Okay. So tell me about your involvement in the kickboxing. What attracted you to
Okay.
that?
All right, 1975. I was always geared to more contact fighting since I have a boxing background. And
Mhm.
even when I was going to karate tournaments, and guys would get mad, punch you behind the head when they said Yame. and I would come back and hit him with a 1-2 hook, drop him on the floor. Tournaments back in the 70s and 80s were like full contact, man. Like it was like gang wars. It wasn't even like dojos coming to tournament. It was like my gang versus your gang versus the Brooklyn gang, and that's how it was because guys were out there. They went out there to fight and hurt you, man. Stomp you, sweep you. But you knew that, and going in there was like a thrill of knowing that you can get knocked out or stomped, and yet what drove us to do it? Because my wife would tell me, I've been married 38 years, and then my
Mm.
wife told me like, man, you're crazy, man. Why do you go out there doing this stuff here? Why are you still doing this thing? But they don't understand that this is my passion, my way of life. When God chooses you to do something, or a path is chosen for you, then you have no denying it.
If you, right, exactly, if you embrace it and stop trying to resist it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And I'm
that's it.
happy, and it makes me happy. I have so many friends that I have around the world, and many of them are, make good money, rich guys and stuff, but so unhappy, so unhappy.
Yep, I understand. So how did you do in the kickboxing, and what organization like were you a part of?
We first started with the PKA,
Okay.
Professional, they called it Karate Association. All
Mhm.
right. It was Don and Judy Quine. They started out in California, Las Vegas, Florida, and then brought it up to New York. Master Wildcat Molina, rest in peace. He became the New York representative. He started promoting small shows in Spanish Harlem at a place called Enter. It was 110th Street and Lexington Avenue. And he had a boxing gym there with which a great trainer that we also trained on, Mickey Rosario, and his wife, Negra. They were like famous for training all New York Golden Glovers. And in the same, they had a boxing ring downstairs with two-floor gym, and he would do the kickboxing shows over there, you know. And I fought amateur. I fought like 30 amateur fights. Pro, I went like 25 pro fights. I lost three, but I gained a few, won a few belts. U.S. belts, title belts, two world title belts in a smaller organization, WKU. So, we had a lot of fun. And then eventually later on, like in '85, I started the PKF, Professional Kickboxing Karate Federation, because I saw, a lot of promoters were shady. They would give you checks that would bounce, when you went to fight. We're making $100 a round fighting. And they would bounce a check. Couldn't even pay you $400, you know? And so I decided to do the right thing. So in 19, I'm gonna go, and still I've been competing in karate back and forth with all the great guys in New York and New Jersey. And then in 1990, I bought Grandmaster Aaron Banks School. That was on 1717 Broadway
Mm.
from 90 to 2000. I was there for 10 years until they decided to demolish the place, which is now the Grand Crown Hyatt or something like that. It like takes up the whole block, which was right across the street from Studio 54. Most of our guys bounced at Studio 54 while we were trained in my karate school. I was there, and I visited Master Aaron Banks. I had the pleasure of him. He became like my granddad, as far as showing me the ropes, how to promote, how to do things. And he's a very successful guy. He just like, without the technology that we have today, them guys, they were grinding, man, and they were making, he would, people don't know, they might say good things, bad things, but I know he had $3 million in his account.
Mm.
So because I rescued all the papers and all the stuff. So at the point when he was giving up the school, he was just tired. He did it all his life. He was like in his mid 70s. He just wanted to go hang out. He used to love to gamble. A lot of people say he did drugs. Never did drugs. He loved the horses. He loved going to Yonkers Raceway. And I would take him up there and I said, do what you want. It's your money, do what you want. But he gave me the school. I revamped it. I put 100 grand into it and then fixed it up and, you know, created a lot of friends. I started promoting events and kickboxing events and karate events. I promoted like 500 shows from 1985 till now.
So the school on Broadway, I know at a certain point, Grandmaster Fontanez also had that
Yes,
school.
yes,
So
yes.
what's the timeline there between
Yeah,
like who had the
when
school?
I left, they came in and the contractors or whoever the Hyatt said, "Listen, man, we're going to be knocking this down in 6 months." So you know what I said? You know what's the purpose staying here? So I went back to the Bronx. I reopened my other school on Fordham Road, on Webster Avenue, Fordham Road, and went back there. And then I also opened up a school in Yonkers on South Broadway. And so I ran those two schools there. What happened is the contractors, permits and all that stuff didn't go through. So Master Fontanez said, hey, if you don't mind if I go in there and stuff like that, maybe it might go through, it might not go through. So he went there, and I think he was there for a year. I think he was there for a year. And, you know, and then eventually they came in, the city got all the permits. I mean, they took down the whole block. They took down the whole block, man. They put like 500 hotel rooms in there and stuff. But you know what? It was awesome. It was so many great memories there, man. So many great martial artists that I met from throughout the world that would come to Times Square and come up to the gym. Originally, it was the New York Karate Academy. I called it New York's finest karate academy. Eventually, we became America's finest because my students started branching out to Florida, to Georgia, to South Carolina, to Connecticut, and that's it.
So tell me about your relationship with Grandmaster Fontanez, because he's told me some interesting stories about you too. So I want to hear
Oh
something
yeah,
from
yeah,
your end.
definitely. Jerry studied with Tiger Kim, Master Tiger Kim, when he was like 8, 9 years old. And I think he got up to green belt or something like yellow green or something like that. Now, Master Kim was the Grand Master back then. That was like the Bolo of the Bronx, man.
Right.
Everybody. So we would compete in Taekwondo tournaments too, because I also studied Taekwondo with Master Frank Santiago, and I would go with guys like Luis Trujillo, Alija, Calazo, all those top senseis, Milton, Mario. These were the top guys at Tiger Kim, and all his guys were great kickers. And they would have sometimes like a black belt workout, like on a Sunday, and you pay $10, and that's how we were all friends like that. And then I met Jerry through there, through the tournaments and stuff like that. And then I see he would be by himself and stuff. So I told him, hey, come hang out with us. And we all started working out together. And so it was like Jerry, Fabian Carrillo, who became the Latin Dragon. He made a movie, The Latin Dragon. I used to train them in my basement, in my mother's basement. Myself, Timac. Timac would come down, Tony Morrison, Top Gun. Well, we had so many martial artists come down. We would just get together, start Radar. There was a guy they used to call him the White Little KA. His name was Radar. Jeff Parisi. Parisi. He used to wear a red, white, and blue top and white mat. He became an executive in the company later on. And Israel Cologne, super sharp kicker. So we would just get together, man, and we would spar for hours and hours. Like we would start at 6, and it's like 11 o'clock at night we're finishing. And that's what we did. Stretch out. I mean, stretch out for an hour. Do
But
sit-ups, push-ups, and just spar.
that at that time, Jerry Timac and Tony Morrison, were they all still under belts?
Um, Tony was a black belt on the George Cofield.
Okay,
Okay.
Dojo. Wow.
Right. Master Fontanez, we all got together and gave Master Fontanez his first black belt together, sport karate. And then we did that. And I'm sure he earned his black belts in some other styles. And who else? Timac was already like a 6th degree or 7th degree under Master Ron Van Cleef. But he was just on his own after his movie. Who else? Israel Cologne was a 3rd-degree black belt from Spanish Harlem, Taekwondo. Sonny Mahai. Sonny Mahai. I mean, so many great guys. It was just a bunch of guys getting together and training hard and exercising and stretching and with dreams that we were going to make. Because when Timac made the movie, we actually did a skit together and bought him because he didn't want to go down there. He was like, nah, they're not going to choose me. And so me, Fabian, Jerry, we trained in my dojo. The first one I opened up in 1980, Monsalud, and we made a skit. And we actually went in and he got the call back. And then the rest was history. So then it gave
Dojo
us hope.
Marshalu, were you like in the basement of one of the apartment buildings? Because I know
No, no,
Marshalu is
no,
like a
no.
bunch
There,
of.
there I had a front level. It used to be a church. So it
Okay.
was right off the Grand Concourse, right down the hill on 204th Street and Montchelou Avenue, 204th Street. And then, yeah, so, Timeout gave us hope that he made it to the movie. Shoot, we can all make it. Then Fabian went out to California. He made movies. And then Jerry wanted to be a world champion point fighter, and he wanted to go that route. And so I tried the movie thing. I was always getting killed. They always had me like a double. We did American Shaolin, King of the Kickboxers. We did one movie with Ron Van Cleef. the line or something like that. And but I realized I'm always going to get killed. So I decided then to go. Jerry went into the point fighting heavy. I still did tournament. I went into the kickboxing, you know, with dreams and aspirations to become whatever we did, win titles and belts and all that stuff. And
I
still
see.
doing it. And still doing it.
Absolutely. So some years ago, there was an event called When Worlds Collide.
Yes.
And I remember me and you were at the press conference, the pre-fight press conference together
Mhm.
that they, photoed and videoed it and things like that. And you ended up being the announcer. So I want you to take me through that, your recollections of that event, and how were you able to resist the urge to be the announcer and not be one of the fighters at that night?
Well, at that time, when I started, like I said, I started the PKF, and I already had done a couple of shows, and people were like, "Man, Jonas is doing some nice kickboxing shows together." And and I was honest with people, always paid them. Even as a promoter in the beginning, you didn't make no money, but you always paid your fighters. You always make sure everybody got paid. I always took money. I've always had a little knack for being an entrepreneur. How I made my money also. Uh, of course, I trained in karate at night, but I'm a carpenter by trade. So I would build houses and flip houses. I worked for it. And actually, it was a bunch of Nisei Goju brothers, Paul Sabat, they were all students of Earl Monroe, and we would work upstate. So they would buy houses, fix them up, flip them, make 100 grand on them, do it again. And they showed me how to do that. And I did construction for a long time. So I would put all my money away. And then even when I fought, make $300, $400, I would put my money away. I was pretty smart with my money and stuff like that. So at that time, then I moved out. My daughter was growing up. I have my daughter Aisha. And then, I was like, you know what? I don't want my daughter growing up in the Bronx getting all crazy. I want to try something different. I had a friend named Angel Muniz. God rest his soul. He died of pancreatic cancer. Who was a Shotokan stylist. And he lived in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And so he came out here and he said, "Hey, listen, man, my dojo is kind of slow. I see that you have a nice dojo in the Bronx. You have one in Manhattan. You have one in Yonkers. Can you help me out with my stuff?" So, I said, on my days off, all right, let me shoot out to Elizabeth. Never, all I knew about Jersey was Newark and Atlantic City. That's all I
Hmm.
knew. Yeah, so I knew Kareem Abdullah. I knew Kareem Abdullah from the KA system. And I knew, of course, I knew you and your master, Kevin Thompson. We were all great friends. We all grew up in that era. And then actually Angel, I came out to help out Angel, and I realized that he needed a lot of help as far as, systems in place of putting programs together for the students. He ends up dying 6 months later of pancreatic cancer, but he told nobody. And I end up here now. I built a school from 10 students to 90 students. So now I'm going back and forth from the Bronx to Elizabeth. I'm kind of liking Elizabeth. It's like a city yet suburban with a little suburban flavor. And then
Hmm.
I ended up staying over here, and eventually I got a house and moved my family out here. I have 3 dojos now in Elizabeth. We have one in Linden, Passaic, Perth Amboy. We're opening one up in Virginia. We have a big one in Florida that's with my instructor in Kissimmee. That's the time, South Carolina is coming. It's in the works.
I want you to tell me how you were able to turn that dojo around, go from 10 to 90. How did you do that? And then I want to get back to how you were tapped on the shoulder to be the announcer for When
Yeah,
Worlds
yeah, yeah.
Collide.
Okay, well, I mean, when we say systems in play, you got to have correct. Like if class starts at 6, you can't show up at 6:15. You know, a lot of instructors feel like they're gonna wait for me anyway. No, you're there at 5:30, 5 o'clock, mopping, cleaning, fixing. So I did all that. Um, Kids were put together with teens, mixed with adults. No, so I divided little babies. Babies were separate, a certain age, kids at a certain age, teens, and then adults had their own classes. So that's why I teach 5 classes a day. And that's the same system that I brought in. So everything look organized. Parents want to get their kids in at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6. The babies, good. They're in bed by 7. The other kids come in 6 to 7. I did teens 7 to 8:30, and I do adults 8:30 to 10 o'clock at night. And I've kept that system for the last 50 years. And so you have system, and then you can't do 1,000 front kicks every day and say I'm trying to master them with their front kick and their round kick. So you got to do different things every day so they don't get bored. Since I do different things every day, so let's say on a Wednesday's kata practice, if they miss Wednesday, man, you missed a new kata, man, that we were just learning. And now you got to wait till next week to go over it. Now these kids are way ahead of you. So it makes the student want to come every day. And today, with the mixed martial arts and all that, there's some kids that don't want to do katas, don't want to wear gis. So on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I have kickboxing and MMA. And
So
so they're
you
welcome
you
to
you
White
you
Room, go
basically
to
made it a better experience for the student.
for
But how were you able
100%
to attract those students to go from 10 to 90 like that? Was it all word of
marketing.
mouth, or did you do outreach advertising?
I still stick to my old school direct marketing.
Okay.
I send out a brochure. I put a brochure together, mail it out, and what I do is, and it's always worked for me. Instagram is great, Facebook is great. Oh, you get leads and stuff. But I direct market. I send you a brochure directly to your house. I buy the mailing list, the same mailing list you get for junk mail, like a Valpak. I buy
Mhm.
the mailing list for like $1,000. They give me 10, 20,000 names. And then I literally make a brochure, put a stamp on it, and I mail it out. So I'll make sure that my whole city gets, everybody gets a mail out from 18 to 80. So I
Okay.
mass market. You have to spend one-third of your money in advertising.
Gotcha.
Make
Okay.
money.
Interesting.
And it's a hustle. This business is I've seen dojos come, close. I've been in business 46 years. I've seen, it's a constant hustle. And, we got that rule, five come, three go, two stay. Five come, three go, two stay. And you got to keep, and today the kids are so much into TikTok and the phone and this and that, that you got to keep their interest level, and that energy flowing and make it fun for them too. At the same time, I still train them hardcore, you know, but we have a little game at the end. That's something they look forward to. And going back now to the how we got with Worlds Collide. So at that time, I was promoting a lot of kickboxing fights. I was more kickboxing at the time. I'm good friends with Master Eugene Floyd, great friends with Master Kevin Thompson, and I know they're both contact fighters because when I moved out to Jersey, now I became a Jersey boy and
Let me
started
let me
hitting the
just jump in
Jersey
for a
joint.
minute for the public that might not know. So when Worlds Collide, it was the epic battle in One Point Magazine. We called it the territorial imperative between Eugene Floyd and Kevin Thompson. 10 rounds, if I recall. And then it was a loaded undercard. Bobby the Axe Murderer Harris fought. Grandmaster Fontanez fought. I believe Rayfon Mills from Philly fought. It was a packed event.
Everybody back stacked event. So we were able to put that together. And at the time it was a Master Teddy Green, who's now the mayor of East Orange.
Right.
All right, we did actually the stuff there at his school, the interview at his school in East Orange or Rhode Island Avenue. And actually, he was a great kickboxer himself.
Yeah, he
And
was an
so,
awesome, awesome martial
yeah,
artist.
yeah,
But who
yeah, yeah.
contacted you to take the role that you took? Was it
Right, he did, he did,
Tamir, or
Tamir, yeah. So because me and Tamir fought a 5 round exhibition bout. He had a student that had some kind of ailment, and we fought at some diner in East Orange, and we raised money, and all the money was donated from the audience and all that stuff to do that. So that's how me and Tamir became great friends. We did a 5 round exhibition kickboxing match. He used to fight super middleweight. I was like a welterweight, at the time. And so we did that. So then they had the great idea, like in Jersey, man, more than New York, there's rivalries, the KA system, the Green Dragons, the Allen Lee guys, there were so many schools with their own styles that, but the
is
best fighters in the
Ninja
lightweight
Turtle,
division.
then Go Kaiju with Master Breaker?
Right, exactly. So yeah, the Ninja Turtles, Andre Graham, Reggie Good,
In
Jesse
Canada,
Harris.
you had Ernest Dickinson and those guys.
That's right. They had their guys down from
Anwar
Canada.
Sabri.
That's right. Amar's he's still competing. He's a great guy,
Mhm.
And so, but the two best lightweights were always Eugene and Master Kevin Thompson. Jesse was in there, Jesse Harris, but he became more of a middleweight. He got stronger. He was lifting weights. Great fighter. Me and him had some great fights.
Yeah, he
And
was my
so we
favorite
said,
fighter from that area
yeah.
in that era.
And then so there was always a lot of talk, and because there was that rivalry, who's the best teacher in that lightweight, who's the king of New Jersey? And so me and Tamir, like, we're like, we're doing kickboxing. That Tamir came to, like, why don't we put a set? They used to be called set fights. I
Yeah.
said, well, not set fight. Let's do a real show. Like I do kickboxing shows. Let's do an undercard and a main event. And that's how that whole thing came about. And then they had a promoter too,
Interesting.
another guy named uh, Brown or something like that. There were some guys involved. And, but it came out to, it was at Elizabeth High School, the Dunn Sports Stadium.
How did he know? How did Tamir Green know, and his partner, whose name I forgot, unfortunately, right now, the other co-promoter. But how did they know that you had the ability, to MC the whole event like that? Because not everybody can do that.
Well, they see me. I've done it on TV a lot of times. I've
Okay,
done
so
it
they've
for
seen
many
some of
shows
your
on
other
TV.
shows.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they came to my kickboxing shows and they said, and you got that kickboxing background. So we'll add like that little kickboxing flavor to the set matches. They weren't full kickboxing matches, but they were hardcore, karate matches and stuff like
Right.
that. So it was good. Which, see, back in the days, right? If you go to a tournament, you got to be there all day to wait to fight the black belts. So you got to be there 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon to watch the best guys, and then the best guys at nighttime. There was like 3 or 4 guys in the audience, like crickets. And here the greatest fighters, the black belts, are fighting, but there's no audience. So we decided to make it just like a show, but the black belts, I say, almost similar to what Master Fontanez is doing with the OG tournament. The black belts are the main show. Let's have a show. And actually, it came out great until they had the little brawl at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
it was a great show up till then.
in case anybody doesn't know, it was Grandmaster Kevin Thompson won that match, 10
Yes, he
round,
did.
10 round
Great.
decision.
Hmm.
So, um, when you are preparing for a tournament these days, well, wait, before I ask you that, let me ask you this.
Hmm.
When it comes to fighting, I want to know what was your most effective technique versus your favorite technique. And let me show you the difference because some people are going to say, oh, my most effective was my favorite. So my favorite was always the spinning axe kick
Hmm.
or the hook round if I could hit you with both the hook and the round.
Right, right,
Because
right,
those two techniques, that gave me like a high if I could hit you with a spinning axe or the hook round. So
yeah,
what was
yeah,
your favorite? But my most effective was, back fist and side kick. So
yeah,
what was
yeah.
your
Well,
most effective versus
same
your
thing with it.
favorites?
In the beginning, because we were like basic super back fist with a pump side kick. I used to love Pedro Xavier, how he
Yeah,
pumps side kick. Even though
right.
he was a little guy, I would watch because I was older. And I see this little 12, 13-year-old go pump psyching people, like bring his chamber up all the way up to his head and pump psyching people. And I said, you know what? That's great. And I had I trained with other guys like I don't know even know names like Frankie Calderon from
Uh-huh. Sure, I
Taekwondo.
know. I
Frankie got
yeah, met him through
super great.
gym.
Yes, he was a student of Joe Hayes. I watched Joe Hayes, and since I had the chance to train with a lot of Taekwondo guys, that pump side kick, spinning hook kick, round kick, you know, and so I was mostly a kicker where everybody was like punching all the time, and that was my favorite pump side kick, spinning back, like you said, hook kick, round kick, side kick. Throw the hook kick, round kick in the air, then pump the side kick to the body. And so yeah, and actually we worked a lot. And actually, Master Jerry was super great and flexible. He was always very flexible for his age. And so it was good. I was
Okay, so
always
that was
short,
your
like five
favorite. That
four.
was your favorite. What was your most effective? The one you scored with the most?
Yeah, pump side kick, back fist. You know, that's
Okay.
it. Because I would do it immediately right after, just blitz right in and stuff like that. And every once in a while, a little sweep in there. I like the dragon sweep. The dragon sweep guys would be high kickers, and just like in video games, dragon sweep them right off the floor. I did it recently at a NASCAR tournament. I got disqualified. I
So that's a
swept
legal
Joe.
technique
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I got disqualified, so I took second one of the tournaments. So, but it's fun. I enjoy point fighting. I enjoy full contact fighting more. I did Kyokushin too. I compete a lot in Kyokushin in
Oh no,
tournaments.
leg
I still
kicks.
do once in a while. Yeah, I like that. I like the contact aspect of it.
Okay. How would you describe your fighting style? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but primarily a puncher, a kicker, a mover, straight line fighter. How would you describe your fighting
It's a
style?
little bit of everything. It's a little bit of, I'm more of a kickboxing type guy in a point fighting scenario. I also trained with Benny Urquidez. So I
Oh
went out there
wow,
when I
okay,
was
I didn't know
young.
that. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went out there between my 20s and 29. I traveled with an army duffel bag with my gi and my equipment. I had the chance to train with Master Urquidez in California. in Tarzana when he had the gym, the bowling alley, the Jet Center. I've been up to Canada to train with Jean-Yves Thériault, the Iceman, him
Mhm.
and his brother Victor, great kickboxer. Been down to Florida, trained with Master Bill Wallace, Joe Louis. I actually brought Joe Louis and Bill Wallace to the Bronx. Actually, Master Jerry Fontanez was there when he brought him. He was kind of scared, man. He was like, "Yo, man, what'd you bring me to, man?" And then I brought him to Fordham Road, and like a hot place where they have like a lot of Spanish food, and there was a lot of gang members around. He goes, "Yo, man, my car's not gonna get stolen, man." I said, "Nah, we got you, man. We got you covered."
Okay, listen, we can't gloss over that. So go back to Benny. What did you pick up from him? What was that training like?
Oh, Master Benny is awesome. The leg kicks. Because back then we were kickboxing, PKA was kicks above the waist, the long pants. But I saw Master Benny Urquidez come when he came to Madison Square Garden and he fought Tayari Cassell on one of Grandmaster Aaron Banks' show. And that's where I had a chance as a teenager to hook up with him. And I said, man, this guy's like shorter than me. And he's like a bad dude. He swept them, stomped them. I'm like him, his sister Lily, she fought for kickboxing too, and the whole family, Arnold and Smiley, they're and also now they're very nice. The Christian people, very nice people, but awesome martial artists, man. But what impressed me with Benny is like he was short, little like me, and smaller than me, and he was knocking big dudes out cold.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it, but I read about him fighting. If you remember back then, Monster Man Eddie Everett and Benny
Oh man,
Urquidez.
nice guy too, man. He came out to New York too. He fought on
Oh,
Master
really?
Banks show. Yeah,
Oh,
he
wow.
fought. He beat up Joe Hess.
Okay, wow, wow.
That Oriental world of self defense was like going to a UFC. Back then,
Right.
that was our UFC.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
Aaron was the Dana White of the day.
So with Benny, you picked up the leg kicks. What about conditioning? Because that's something he seemed
Oh,
to be a fanatic about the conditioning, and then he would do
always.
the impact stuff where he slap you, hit you, and get you conditioned to
Yeah,
take that.
always. I learned that everywhere I went. Bill Wallace, Joe Louis, Johnny, Ben, everybody trained. Conditioning was the key. If you weren't in shape, you know, you couldn't be a fighter. We had great fighters back in the day, PKA, both WKA and PKA. We had great fighters, man. And everybody who was basically when you first started out as a PKA fighter, to be a pro, you had to be a black belt. So
Mhm.
there were great kickers, great fighters. Even from Puerto Rico, we had great fighters.
So what would you say you picked up from Bill Wallace and Joe Louis?
Wallace, the lead leg kicking, the stretching, the lead leg. I did a lot of seminars when we came over, and just, drilling your legs, man. Joe Louis footwork, boxing footwork. They had back and forth, and he combined it with the karate timing, coming in, blitzing, back fist. Great job. And he has great guys who are still friends of mine, like Phil Maldonado, the Gradens, Jim Graden, John Graden down in Florida. He had great students up there and stuff.
Yeah,
But
Bill
Bill's always
Wallace kicking was just amazing. I used to watch him fight on TV when they televised a lot of the PKA fights, but then I actually got to see him live and in person, and I actually interviewed him for the article called "To Be Champion" back in the day. But got to see him live at one of Joyce's tournaments, right, Empire State, and to see him live up there kicking, it was just like it was like wow, it was
awesome,
just
awesome
much more
athlete.
impressive than seeing it on TV. It
He
was
was
just like,
always in great shape. He was a kinesiologist, very well educated, and still to this day, a great athlete.
mhm, absolutely. Okay, so when you have a tournament coming up, like what's your next event, for example?
Okay, I just finished doing a big event down in Florida. I live now 2 weeks in Elizabeth, and I live 2 weeks in Florida. I go back and forth because we're building the 7,000 square foot gym for my instructor. We're still in the construction phase, even though he has a couple of students in there, because it's actually going to become a training center for fighters, both martial art classes, but also a cage and a ring for pro fighters and stuff.
Wow.
And we're in between the cities of Kissimmee and Ponciana. My student who ran Connecticut's finest, his name is Nazim Ali, he's from Pakistan, became a real estate investor. And he bought like 500 acres of land right in between that. And right now, he bought that like for like $3 million 10 years ago for 500 acres. He's selling each acre now for 900,000. So on the acre sits 5 buildings, and we took one of the buildings and are turning it into a dojo training center.
Hmm. And Kissimmee, what part of Florida is that? Is that like north, south, central,
Next to
both side?
Orlando. Yeah, it's right
Okay,
off of
close to
Orlando.
Atlanta.
It used to be a suburb of Orlando, but now it's getting so big that it's become its own actual city. And then the suburb to that, Ponciana, is also becoming its own. They call it Little Puerto Rico. There's over 1 million Puerto Ricans there right now.
Hmm.
Because Hurricane Maria, and also there's a vast influx of Venezuelans that escaped the Chavez Maduro era. So you have
Okay.
them in Miami, and you have them up north, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and Dominicans, and a large Haitian population too in Orlando and Kissimmee.
Okay. So when I said next event, I meant like your next tournament. What's your next event that you're going to be competing at?
I'll be competing next week at the Ocean State Grand Nationals because
Okay.
it's a qualifier for the ICOs, International Combat Organization, that's going to be held in France. So they really don't have senior competitors. I'm going to be 67 this year, and the highest senior competitor was 40 something, 50 something, but they do have divisions 50 and 60 in the ICOs, and it's a big organization that's going on. Actually, I think the ICO came from the WKU, and I guess they were partners. But they have these tournaments, so like 30, 40 countries come to these events. So, I like to compete in a world championship. That's nice to meet other people from other parts of the world that share your passion.
What events are you competing in?
Ocean States, I do the traditional karate and the kata and the weapons and sometimes they eliminated NASCAR because you saw Sunday I competed in Kempo. I did a Kempo form
Oh,
because
okay.
I used to do some of the tournaments like the Pan Americans has Kempo. I'll be doing the Kempo forms also over there. I enjoy it.
Okay.
Going back to the roots.
So with this event that's coming up in a couple of weeks, or for any tournament, coming up, I want you to share some insights into how you prepare for a tournament. Like, do you have to do any specific training for it,
Oh yeah,
or are
yeah,
you
yeah.
just
I actually train every day. I train an hour and a half every day. So one day I'll
in
start.
addition to teaching 5 classes?
Yeah, I train in the mornings. I train in the mornings now. So I,
Wow.
I don't start till 5 o'clock. I teach from 5 to 10. So I'll get up at 11, 12 o'clock. And I actually live right next to my dojo. My house is connected to my dojo. So I actually literally walk through the door, because I rent out a 5,000 square foot place, and it has actually a 3 bedroom apartment. And then I just literally walk through the walls and I'm in my dojo.
This is the
Oh,
Elizabeth location?
yes, my headquarters,
Okay.
which is behind you right there. You can see it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then so I'll train, I'll get up, and that's my daily routine. Get up, maybe read the Bible a little bit, a little scripture, and then get my mind going, and then start jumping rope. And I train like a kickboxer. So I jump rope, I hit the bag 10 rounds, I do shadow boxing, I stretch out. One day I'll do my kicks. One day I'll take out just to do my forms and my weapons, go over that stuff so you don't forget that stuff. When I go to a tournament, I have 10 different katas ready to go in my
Okay.
mind. So they say tie up, tie up. One time, me and Master Derek Williams, I think we were in an out-of-state tournament, and we tied up like 4 times. We tied up, and they said, do another kata and another kata, and we kept rocking and rolling. They got tired. They said, both of you are grand champion, because we were rocking it, man. And that's the way I love it. I know me and Master Derek, we know each other since we were 13 years old.
Mm.
Yeah, we used
Wow.
to we used to come and train together too in my basement, and me, him, Billy Beeson, great fighters, Darren Lloyd, Louis Bad Boy Ruiz.
I saw something similar with the ties once. It was between Grandmaster Kevin Thompson and um oh gosh, I'm having a senior moment. What's the Wushu guy, Dennis Brown student in DC? Oh, Bam. Willie
Bam,
the
yeah,
Bam
yeah, bam,
Johnson.
yeah.
They tied up like
Willie,
three or
Willie.
four times. I don't know if you were there for that tournament. And I gotta ask Willie next time I see the Bam, like who actually won that, because I don't remember who won, but they tied like 3 or 4 times. And
Yeah.
that
And
was
that's how it was, and you had to be ready. You had to be ready to perform. you know? So not only like you have to be in good shape for fighting, you have to be good in shape for forms too. You know that you know after you do a form, you do it 100%. You're breathing hard, man. And
Yes.
then they're like next division up, weapons or whatever, and you got to be ready. Your
Okay,
cardio
so
has to be good.
absolutely. So going back to your training then. So well let's talk about kata since I'm competing in kata now. So like how many times will you do the kata? Will you do it slow? Will you do it fast? Like will you break it down?
Break
Will you
it
use
down. I
video?
break
Will
it
you look in
down.
the mirror? Like how do you do it?
I break it down. I do certain movements and stuff like that, you know. So I repeat it. I try it 10 times, like you said, 10 times every one and go over it. And if I have a little doubt on, I need some work on some of the movements, I just go over that part over and over again. But it's a matter of just keep doing it strong, you know. And you got to stay flexible. You got to stretch too, you know. I still maintain my split and stuff. So it's good, you know. Even though a lot of the Japanese forms have low kicks, you know, every once in a while I'll jump into Korean division, do a Korean form.
Oh wow. Now do you have your split both ways?
Yeah. I still maintain flexibility. Yeah, even
Okay.
Master Fontaine still has a split. We're like it's crazy. Like we're in our 60s, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like 60 back to then when I was looking at it, man, that was like you were like an old man ready to
Oh yeah,
die.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
back in the
definitely. When we
day,
were
you were
growing up,
50,
60,
60, you
65
were
was like you
done.
all grayed out, hunched over.
Yeah. You know, you were done, man. But you know what? I'm enjoying my life. I'm enjoying my life, you know. That's important, man. And by traveling, you know, I compete in tournaments in Florida all the time. So when I go down to Florida, I make sure it's based around a tournament. I also compete a lot in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has some really awesome fighters and competitors too. I'm trying to
Okay.
do that. I'll be heading out to California for the internationals because actually Master Billy Blanks said, "Why don't you guys come up, bring a little crew from the East Coast up?" You know, so I said, "Hey, why not? We'd love to see him again." That'll be August 1st, the
He's
internationals.
back in Massachusetts, you said?
No. He's out in Cali,
He's still
but
in Cali.
you know,
Okay.
it'd be nice. He told it'd be nice to have some East Coast guys come up again, you know, just to make it different. And man, I remember competing in that tournament when I was younger. Me, Shion Derek Williams, Master Tommy Chen, and I forget. I think it was Billy Beast or somebody else. We went out there, or Adriel Muniz. We went out there, man. Just the four of us, you know, and we play. I placed third in forms, like fifth in fighting. Master Derek took second in kata. Master Chen took like in the creative open back then, he took second. And I went into the lightweight division and there were like 70 guys, 70 guys in the lightweight division.
Yeah.
They were fighting all day. Forms, 40 guys in the forms division. It was
Yeah.
crazy. I've never been to a tournament so big in my life.
Yeah, that's it. That's something else.
Yeah.
So, well, obviously fighting is your favorite of the three events, but between forms and weapons, do you have a favorite or not?
No, I love forms now. You know, at my older age, I like competing in the forms and stuff like that. It's nice because it's the art form. You know, anybody can kick and punch and do that. All right, but you know, the form shows that you know the versatility of style, knowledge of systems, and you know, and it's an art. It's an art form. And, you know, I like being an artist. So you
So do
know,
you prefer empty hand or weapons or equal?
I prefer the empty hands, but I like the weapons too. I enjoy it, you know. I consider both an art form, and I'm a big fan. You know, even though I'm at my age at 67, going to be 60. You know, when I watch these guys compete, like Esteban Tremblay, the Presleys, and all that, and people are like, "Oh, these guys are just doing gymnastics and all that." But you know what? I respect their athletic abilities, man, and the way they compete, and I know traditional forms are coming back too with Mason, Stoll, and all them kids like that. But all of them, I'm a fan of the young guys.
Yeah, yeah, I like watching the weapon guys also, but I do have a concern that it's going too much into uh too much baton twirling and
No, I
a
understand.
loss of
Yeah.
Bunkai. There's got to be a limit to that, you know.
Right. That's why they
So
have the traditional weapons and they have the extreme stuff, you know. But I respect the athletes, you know, the fact that they're great athletes and stuff like that, you know.
absolutely. Tell me about the time that you and Jerry took that long trip from New York to Florida to compete at the U.S. Open.
Oh man, we went to it was promoted by a guy named Charlie Brown. It was we thought it was funny as hell. Charlie Brown's going to throw a tournament, and it was the first U.S. Open. And man, we went there, concrete floors. It was just tape on it. We thought it was this big thing, something different from New York. Yeah, a lot of competitors went down there. They just put tape on a gray concrete battleship painted floor. It was crazy. It's called the Omni down there in Florida. And we had guys like I think rest in peace. I think one of them died. The Mishak brothers,
Okay.
Gary Mishak. They were from
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. Steve Mishak. They were great fighters. Rest in peace, Steve Lavelli. Steve
Okay.
Lavelli, great
Mhm.
fighters like that. Um, Another guy, Gus and Guzman. I mean, Florida had some great fighters back then too. And we were down there, and man, we had a gas. We had a ball with everybody. But it was bare concrete floor. I remember going in once to Capitol Classics too, just all concrete floor. Then eventually people started putting mats on it and stuff, since people started like cracking their heads on the floor.
Well, you were used to Mitchell Gym anyway, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. Remember the Mitchell gym over there?
There used to
Who
be
do you
like a
remember
tournament,
throwing
like
tournaments
every
out
two
there?
months in Mitchell Gym, there was a tournament.
I loved it there. I loved it there. I won like two grand championships over there. When Master Ernest Hyman used to compete, Master Dave
Right.
Thomas, me and him had some great fights over there. Um, yeah, that was who threw. I forgot who threw that tournament. Was it Seafood?
There was a bunch of different promoters that used to use that
Yeah,
that used to use that gym. I guess the rate was a favorable rate. So
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
couple of different promoters used to use that. Um, I thought Ying Yi was might have been held there at one point, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I'm
Yu
not
was
sure.
always up in Brooklyn. Oh, man, the Shotokan guy. He was there at the tournament Sunday. Oh man, I forgot his name. He used to do the tournaments up in the Mitchell gym.
Okay.
Shotokan.
Was it
Uh,
T. Dalton?
T. Dalton. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. T. Dalton's. Yeah, yeah. T. Dalton. He used to do the tournaments over there at the
Right.
Mitchell gym. But the other, Halbert Lee. Halbert Lee. See, for Halbert Lee used to throw some nice events over there too at the Mitchell gym.
Mhm.
Then he threw
Okay,
some in
cool.
Manhattan too.
Mhm.
The Warrior Classic, it was called.
Right. So, Jonas, do
And
you have any
I
children?
think one David Washington threw one there too, a traditional one, David Washington. So
Mhm.
he's down in Florida now, so I bump into him every once in a while.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Do you have any children?
I have one beautiful daughter and one adopted daughter,
And what are their ages?
37 and 35.
Okay. Did they get involved in martial arts?
My daughter Aisha is a full-blown martial arts instructor. She has 150 students. She's in my city. We have three schools: North Side, South Side, and West Side. And she's on the West Side. And yeah, she has 150 students. She's very good with kids.
Okay. Wow, amazing. Did she compete or used to compete?
She used to compete in local tournaments, smaller ones. Like she grew up in Jersey, so mostly, the ones in Jersey. She was excellent in college. Even till today, she would be beating a lot of these girls. But she got married at 21, decided to have a family, and devote a lot of time to her family and her dojo, and that's it. And I
Okay.
train her. She trains with me twice a week, because I have to teach them the systems and do everything like that.
Okay, interesting. Well, so what else is important for us to know about you and your place in the martial arts world?
Oh, I'm just happy to be one of the guys in the top five. It's always nice to know that people say, hey, you're competing with, if I go to tournament, I either place first or second and stuff like that. And it's just to be good. You're like the top 10 ranking in boxing. So it's just to knowing people respect you as a good martial artist, but more important as a good person. And that's it. I love helping kids. My passion is children. I love teaching children and teenagers and directing young people into a right path of life. And when you see me compete my Karate for Christ thing, that's I had a personal experience a long time ago. in the Bronx where, in my experience, I met Jesus and he spoke to me and said, I had a plan for your life. And then it was a life and death situation. And then I said, well, if you saved my life, I will represent you from now on. I will put you first in everything that I do. And my life took a 360-degree turn. And I've been blessed, brother. I've got beautiful grandkids, beautiful daughters, family. Been blessed financially, been in business 46 years, still meet new people, still have the fire and the desire to do new things. Actually, we're speaking with Master Fontanez and Willie Rivera, who did the Kung Fu. We had the red top on there too. He's also a Muay Thai promoter, and we're talking about actually doing something big together now since after Sunday. So, so ideas develop, cultivate, and new things pop up. And it's just because we have this passion for this thing called martial arts.
Yeah, when I think of you, I think of someone that, well, two things. Someone that's trained consistently through the years, never stopped and took breaks, and that you always bring in, a positive energy, a positive force, always making a contribution, in that way. Um, you seem never to get sucked into, the pettiness that is,
No,
sometimes you see in the sport karate world.
yeah.
Um, you mentioned about for you, martial arts is a way of life. I want you to speak about that. How is it more than just a physical workout? Because I hear a lot of instructors say, "Oh, karate can help you with discipline," for example. And I say, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate. How much discipline does it take to do something that you love?
Hmm. Exactly. No, as a way of life, yeah, of course. Those are all the normal things, keeping you in good shape, keeping your mind at peace. But more importantly, the again, like you mentioned, the integrity, the honesty, the loving people, not being jealous of somebody, trying to covet something through the martial arts. Oh, I'm better than this guy. Is bad. I look at all martial artists that have schools, have clubs, teaching community centers, and if they're doing positive things, they're getting kids off the street, and then that is a change of life. You're using this as a tool to change lives. And if you can change a life, then you're really a Shihan, a Sensei, a Soki, a Shidoshi, whatever you want to call yourself. It doesn't matter. If you change somebody's life for the positive and you've been an influence for many years doing that, then that is real martial arts. That's what the masters taught, a way of life. It's not just punch kick. You're going to get to a certain age, you can't punch and kick no more. But the philosophy in life, your integrity is very important. Your word, very important. That you do things, you accomplish things, that you're there for people. Martial arts is a ministry to me.
That's fascinating. And I want to kind of pinpoint, if you can elaborate, how are you as an instructor imparting those qualities, those lessons to your student if the lesson is just a physical workout for an hour and a half? I mean, that's how it is in 99% of karate schools. It's an hour and a half workout,
Right,
but yet
right,
they
right,
claim all these benefits. Like how can you claim those benefits if you're just
right.
giving a physical workout?
No, with the children at the end, we also have the word of the week,
Okay.
or the lesson of the week. We teach, hey, today let's learn about being jealous. What is jealousy? Does anybody know what that, and I'll ask those questions. What does it mean to covet? They're like, what? Well, you want to take, you kind of like, hey, this guy has a nice phone. I wish I had that phone. Matter of fact, I want to steal that phone, that kind of thing. And that's how I start explaining simple things like that to them. Basic things that a lot of parents don't teach their kids no more today. We were taught, right? When you were little, respect your elders. If a grandma's walking through the door, open the door for grandma. Any woman, pull out a seat. If somebody's in line, you let them go first in the bank or at the post office. Respect. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You know, there's no respect like that. That's not being taught today because there was a generation of babies were having babies, and I saw that, and then we lost that. And the only way I see that through churches, mosques, synagogues. If you place some kind of spiritual aspect to everybody, you know. It helps, man. It helps to have a moral background, a spiritual background, a foundation besides just the physical.
When you say churches, mosques, and synagogues, so that makes me think churchianity versus spirituality. And how many churches are really offering an authentic or legitimate path of spirituality?
Mhm.
Can you speak on that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like anything, just like martial arts. Not every church is teaching the right thing. Not every mosque is teaching the right thing. Not every synagogue is teaching right. Because then you have groups. You got guys that can become fanatical. You got guys, it basically comes down to that you study your scriptures, that you study your word. If you study something and you know it 100%, nobody can fool you. So it's the same thing with martial arts. I meet guys like, oh, I do Korean Shotokan. I do this. There's no such thing as Korean Shotokan. I do Japanese Kung Fu. There's no such thing. But like in Jersey, there was a lot of made up styles, New York style, and people did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they throw names out there and okay, so just be honest and say, I teach an eclectic system of martial arts that I've learned throughout the years. But they try to justify it with this guy signed my certificate and that guy signed my. It doesn't mean nothing if your skills don't match up to what you're trying to say. So the same way in spirituality, you have phony preachers, phony imams, phony rabbis, and then you got people who dedicate themselves to teaching their communities and their people the right way. And you know how that is? You could see it through how they live their life. Because if you don't practice what you preach, your life will show that.
Is there a relationship between martial arts and spirituality?
Always. It was always created like that. It was always created. Even when the Japanese instructors first came out, because remember, it comes from India, right? So, and there were the Hindis, and then they brought it to China. The Chinese became, Buddhists and all that. So there was always some form of spirituality involved with the martial arts. In other words, as older you get to be a higher, a better humanitarian, in life.
Yeah, if you go back to the Shaolin Temple, so they were monks and they were being preyed upon by the society, the village, wherever they lived in, whatever. So martial arts became a way first of protecting their spirituality, of
Right.
protecting their monk way of life. But then it reached a point where they were unable to separate their spirituality from the martial arts. It
Right.
blended and became, that deep.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then people learn the physical aspect of the martial arts and took it their way and did whatever they wanted to do with it. But originally it was meant, because they learned martial arts because they didn't want to go out there and hit somebody with a bow, shoot somebody with a bow and arrow, cut somebody's neck off and this and that. So it was meant as a form to, all right, you might stop the aggressor but not kill him. But then, other
yeah,
people took
yeah.
it far.
What do you think? Yeah, it's interesting. So you're saying like after Shaolin, over the years, the spirituality kind of drifted away and it became more of a physical thing. You see the
Right.
same thing with yoga. Yoga started out as a spiritual practice, but
Hmm.
when it was kind of reinvigorated in the early 1900s, like 1920, where the guy, forgot his name, who was repopularizing it, and he was emphasizing all the extreme postures. So, now when you go to a yoga school, most of them have lost sight of that this is supposed to be a spiritual practice, that yoga is a spiritual practice, not just, a physical thing.
Like hot yoga.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not to
Like
knock that.
like
I'm sure it has its
Bikram,
benefits, but
right? Remember that guy Bikram yoga?
right. I mean, when you have yoga instructors teaching yoga, but not talking about pranayama, meaning breath control,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's like you're not getting the whole ball of wax. So
Exactly, exactly. Well, like anything that's good becomes commercialized.
yeah. But
Martial arts
even though it
got
becomes
commercialized.
commercialized, meaning putting money on it, there's no need to I don't believe there's any need to lower the quality. The quality, the standard should still remain high and still
Exactly.
remain true, to its to its original purpose or whatever. So, so tell me about some of your students these days. Anybody up and coming that's going to be out there, on the circuit competing? A lot of times I see you at tournaments, you look like you're the only one from your school.
Yeah, yeah, because again, it's a different generation. I had 10 world champions in kickboxing, five amateur fighters, five pro fighters in the 80s and 90s.
Hmm.
Orlando Rivera being one of them, Orlando the Warrior Rivera, being a five-time world kickboxing champion, two-time USA boxing, who's down in Tampa now. You see him at the events, Orlando the Warrior Rivera. And a few guys, Henry Hitman Nieves, and
Hmm.
great fighters, great kickboxers. Right now, most of the guys, they reach black belt, they want to go into college and just follow what they want to do, and they'll compete at the small SHIs and the tournaments, but it's not like and you see it in the NASCAR too in the sport. You say like, whatever happened to this person? Whatever happened to that? And either they got into business, opened up a dojo, or they just went into other fields of marketing or became doctors or therapy, like Ross Levine, a great martial artist now. Now he's a doctor, he's a therapist and stuff. I've had other friends that are nutritionists, and some guys are doctors, you know.
Yeah, you're saying about what happened to this person. I always think of that when I think of Butch Marks. I'm like, yo,
Right.
whatever happened to Butch Marks? Like he was amazing. And him and
Yeah.
Casey were out there killing it together. They actually were teaching their own karate school as teenagers. The mother set them up. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
where's Butch Marks these days? Whatever happened to Butch?
Did they move up to Canada?
Casey did, yeah, when she married Trevor Nash.
Right.
So,
So, and
but
that's what happens, and people realize too that they got to make a living, they got to make a living. And running martial arts school is not easy. So running multiple martial arts schools is even hard. I do this 7 days a week, you know. I'm just on top of things. That's all. Because you got to have systems in place. And it's not hard. I'm from the old school, it don't have to be all computerized. It's just you got to have a certain way. Every school has to be a mirror image of the main school.
what happened? What is your Sundays like then? What are you doing on Sundays
Sundays I
that
go
you?
to church. I get up, I go to church. After we finish church, I take my family out to eat, and we spend a whole family day and stuff like that. But even though I'm at church, there's jujitsu classes going on. They have Sanukas jujitsu. One of the masters, Master Rashid Shipman. He teaches over there on Sundays at my school from 3 to 6. Sanukas, and so my dojo's open up 7 days a week.
Okay, so he's basically renting it for that day. He's
Yeah,
not part of
renting
your
out space and stuff
he's
like
not part
that.
of the system.
But every day you come in, there'll be somebody. On Saturdays, I have Muay Thai, going on. So, and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and stuff. So it's always busy. I try to teach only Monday to Fridays now, and then I leave my weekends to travel, to go to tournaments.
Okay. So you can leave on Friday, like for Ocean State, you'll leave on that Friday or something.
Yeah, I'll leave Friday in the morning and stuff like that, because the next day we're competing at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock. Then done, and then maybe I go up with one of my students, and they'll compete as an underbelt on Sunday and just drive. It's only 4 or 5 hours from
Correct.
me. And then, then the weekend after, I'm in Florida for the 18th.
What's happening there?
Hanshi Jim Rivera and Dallas, Master Nathan Ingram, they have
Uh-huh.
the Dallas with
Yes.
a combination of a tournament. So they have that going on. That's in April. In May, my friend Master in South Jersey is a big tournament. Milton Guiles, the Shootercon Open on May 9th. Then I'm back in Florida May 16th for the Pan Americans.
Wow.
Manny Reyes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then at the end of May, there's something else. And then June, you have a local tournament. Then you have Battle of Atlanta. Then another local tournament, I think, here near the New York. Because
You're going to Battle of Atlanta also?
yeah, I'll be there.
So Manny Reyes is the promoter for the Pan American Games?
Yes, he is. Yes, man,
Oh
the
man,
senior.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Have you ever been there?
Competitor turned promoter. They're they're
Have you
they're
ever
the
been there? Have
best.
you ever been there?
To the Pan American Games?
Yes.
No, I've never been there.
Miami, very nice. A well-run tournament. Excellent.
I never even did the US Open. So
No?
no.
Oh, you gotta go, man. Last year there was like 5,000 competitors. You
Wow.
have to go. You have to go, man.
Wow.
That's like the top. I mean, Christine Bannon's tournament's going to be something like that. But what makes it exciting at the U.S. Open? It's just one giant open floor, like the Jacob Javits Convention Center, and you see like 50 rings going on at the same 50 rings going on, full packed.
You remember the one year Lee Ireland had the Jacob Javits Center?
Yeah, yeah. Great guy too, promoting events. So those are great events. Like New York used to have so many great events and it just fizzled out.
Yeah, they had a lot of tournaments that were poorly run. I was glad, coming back on the scene last year to see how competitors, torn promoters, just upgraded the quality in a tremendous way. With the
Hmm.
technology of having the computers there, this and that, you
Right,
don't have these 20, 30-minute delays between between the rings starting. Like one ring ends, another one starts. You know how it was back
right.
in the day. I remember one tournament, I was like a yellow belt, and my division didn't start till Sunday night.
Yeah. We were used to, remember Lamar Thornton's tournaments at City
Yes.
College?
Yep.
We were there till like 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yep. And I
Awesome,
didn't leave till the
awesome.
end. I
Great,
wasn't
great
going to leave
tournaments.
until I said that. Till I saw that
Yeah.
black belt fighting, I wasn't leaving.
Yeah, but that was normal for us. That was normal.
All right.
Now
So it's
tournaments
it,
end at 4 o'clock, you know?
yeah, it's a breath of fresh air now. Again, I was living in Pennsylvania for the past 20 years, so I was out of the scene. But coming back, I was just so pleased to see, guys like Garth Binns and Jesse Ray, doing it the right way.
Yeah, they're hooked up with the USA Sport Karate. He was a friend of mine's, Dave
Okay.
Scalar, and
Right.
he's got it down packed in Florida. He does like 2 events a month. Really good events, you know. And they got it down packed, USA Sport. They started also doing it with Kyle Reed in Pennsylvania. And Garth is I went to a few of Garth's tournaments already at the Big Apple and the ones he holds it in Jamaica Queens and stuff. So competing there. Very good organization. Anything that is positive and promotes martial arts, whatever I
Did
can
you
make and
compete at
make.
K Talk last year?
Yes, I did. I won 3 divisions.
Hmm. I don't remember seeing you there for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. He gave out the little medals with the rotating
Okay.
medals. Yeah, we were right
Right.
there by the curtain, right up by the
Right.
curtain.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Remember that now. Great. Okay,
They're
very
one of your
good.
dojo
I don't
brothers,
know if you
your
saw the
dojo brothers.
channel. I have a video up there where the duel between you and Alan Acosta at one of the tournaments last year, where you guys
Oh
went
yeah.
back and forth in forms and in weapons. Like he beat you in one division and then you beat him in the other division.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Great kid. I've known him since he was like a little guy. I know
Wow.
Master Lou Ferrer for 40 years, you know. We go way back and stuff, you know. I'm competing against the guys that used to be little kids. They say, "Oh, I've been watching you for since I was a little kid," you know. So, oh, okay.
Yeah, you were a black belt when I was a white belt. So
It's all
that's
right.
awesome. So great. Great. Well,
Hey, I'm
thanks
happy to
for
be breathing.
absolutely. Thanks for spending this time with us here today. Is there anything else you want to get out there? Anything else that we should know? How would you like to end it?
Oh, basically, man, I just speak to all instructors out there. Live with integrity, man. Live by your word, you know, practice what you preach, live with integrity, you know, and then your students and you will be blessed. God will bless you in anything that you do as long as you live, you know, a good life, you know, a peaceful life, an enriching life where you teach others, where you put others, serve others first, you know. Make sure, you know, like scriptures say, take care of the orphans, take care of the widows, take care of those babies that come into your dojo that don't have fathers, the single moms, you know, take care of kids who don't have mentors, don't have a father figure in their life or a mom figure in their life. There's even a lot of fathers out there that are raising their own kids like that. You know, be that mentor, be that person that replaces that, be that dojo grandpa that the kids are looking at, you know. And believe me, you'll just have that extended family for years to come. I'm in my third generation of students. My old students are bringing their kids and their grandkids.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know that must
So,
be
so you know, practice what you preach, you know, and
yes,
you'll
sir.
be all right.
Yes, sir. Great. Thank you. And yeah, yes, sir. Same here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Us.